central place in British culture could be increasingly under threat, with church attendance numbers in severe decline. Meanwhile, the nation's second largest religion, Islam, is growing faster than ever, with some studies suggesting it could eventually become the dominant faith. RT's Polly Boyko has the story.
Half of Brits say they're Christians, but you wouldn't know it glancing at this London service.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
New figures show that the UK's official religion is declining faster than was previously thought. Worshippers are aging, and for the first time ever, fewer than half under the age of 25 describe themselves as Christian.
The decline of churches in the UK is long term. It just happens to be now approaching really rock bottom. So 95% of people don't attend a church on an average Sunday.
While the Church of England struggles, the Office for National Statistics says that the number of Muslims in England and Wales has surged by 75%. And they're young. Half of British Muslims are under the age of 25. I'm looking at the swathes of men in the hall down below. What is it that draws them here?
That's the big question. Motivation theory is very, very different for different people. Islam's family values are very well bonded, and families really try to nurture young people in the fold of Islam. We have more than 50% congregation from the young people, because we try to deal with the young people's issues, so they feel part of the mosque establishment.
Religious think tank The Pew Forum estimates that if present trends continue, the Muslim population of the UK will swell to almost double within 20 years, totalling 5.5 million. According to these figures, it means that by 2030, Britain will have more Muslims than Kuwait. It's projects such as this community-based Muslim radio station that could provide the clue as to why the religion is flourishing in the UK. In that booth, DJs who call themselves brothers and sisters talk about local issues and education from the point of view of Islam. Inspire started out as a special transmission during the holy month of Ramadan. It became so popular that it was established as a permanent radio station.
It's actually a lot of pressure on the husband or anything.
It comes with an Islamic ethos that we won't do anything which is deemed non-Islamic on air. Hence, the music element, one may question about the fact that of the music that we play on the radio station. We won't have your mainstream music playing on there because majority of it isn't deemed Islamic. We wouldn't advertise anything un-Islamic in the sense that we wouldn't have any adverts for alcohol. We won't have any adverts for, say, for example, gambling, all those kind of things.
According to academics, it's the obedience that Islam demands from its followers that's made it more appealing to worshippers and converts from other religions.
Islam says no. This is no and full stop, and people find a sense of direction in it because their religion of origin has lost that, not because that it didn't have it in the first instance. They sort of became lenient in relation to the laws of the church, and thinking that in this way they would make it more mellow and softer and attract more people into the church. And in fact, they've lost people.
Something that the Church of England disagrees with.
The death of Christian England has been greatly exaggerated. Despite a decade of naysaying and campaigning by atheist commentators and groups, 6 out of 10 people in England self-identify as Christians, a figure which rises to more than 2/3 when including people identifying with faith as a whole.
And yet there are demographers that say that if current trends continue, Islam could eclipse Christianity as the dominant religion in the UK in as little as 10 years' time. Polly Boyko, RT, London.
Let's get some more reaction to this now from Peter Norris, a communications manager at the lobby group Christian Concern. Thanks for joining us here on RT today. So is Christianity in decline in Britain?
Oh, well, it's a more complex picture than the 2011 census data paint. Those figures do show that the church needs to wake up a bit and recover some of the confidence that it's lost in the good news of Christianity. It's called good news for a reason. Jesus welcomes all people who turn from sin and turn to him, whether they're men or women, rich or poor, immigrant or non-immigrant. So the church does need to recover some of its confidence in that message. Are
enough people hearing that message, though, that you want them to hear? Because what are the biggest challenges? Does it need to modernise?
Well, I think you'll find that the churches where they have a clear view of the good news of Jesus Christ, and not ashamed of saying that it is good news for all people, those are the kind of churches that are growing. It's churches that are compromising on that message that are actually declining. So if you look at some other data, for example, the British Social Attitude Survey published just 1 or 2 weeks ago, it shows that the decline in Christianity has actually been almost exclusively in the Church of England, the established church, whereas numbers of people going to other churches or other church groups have remained pretty much constant for the last 30 years. So the numbers are about the same in 1983 as they are today. And even more interestingly, the London Church Survey shows that in the period 2005 to 2012, there's actually been an increase in church attendance in London of 16%. So that's 9% of the whole population of London going to church on a Sunday. So nearly 1 in 10 Londoners go to church on a Sunday. And there's been an increase of 17% in new churches in London. So
okay, well, those sound like
well.
impressive figures, but what about the growth in mosque attendance? I mean, a lot more mosques these days. What do you put that down to?
Well, obviously, the birth rate amongst Muslims is significantly higher, I believe. And so those children are being brought up going to mosque and calling themselves Muslims. I think your report pointed out that there are many younger Muslims as well. But as I said earlier, that I think there's been a loss of confidence in the church about its own message about Jesus Christ being good news for all people.
And what about the growth of Islam then? Could there be a conflict in terms of Christianity in the future or not?
Well, I think it's of concern depending on what happens. So if Sharia law is going to be enacted, which I believe it is in some parts of the country, then that clashes with British law. So British law, and in most Western democracies there's one law for all, but in Sharia there are 3 fundamental inequalities, one of which is between men and women, one is between slave and free, and the other is between Muslim and non-Muslim. So there will be certainly a clash in the legal sphere, and I think most citizens of Britain would agree that one law for all is a much better principle and a much fairer principle.
OK, we'll leave it there. Peter Norris, live from London. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today on RT.